that we weren't going to go. So we went out to the ranch, and we were there maybe a week when my uncle was told, you need to get out because the Russians were coming closer. It's going to be fight, battleground. You need to get out. So we went back into the city, and we were there maybe 2 weeks or so when, and we would all night long in a bunker and all day long up, you couldn't burn anything because of the smoke and so on. So one day, I think maybe 2, 3, anyway, we held out in there, which was such a big mistake, until September, I think the middle of September, late September, when one of those Volkssturmmänner, they walked around and they, yelled into the houses, you need to leave, and there's somebody going to pick you up with your stuff, whatever you can carry. Not too much, just what you can carry. So it was up on the corner, so my aunt, my grandmother, and I went up to the corner with whatever we could carry and, still stuff. And then a wagon came, picked us up, brought us to the river, and put us on a boat because you couldn't get out by train anymore because they were shooting at the trains and so on. So we got on a boat and on a paddle wheeler, and we went down the river and through the delta. And when we got close to the delta, it was evening. The boat didn't leave until evening. And women and children had to go on the bottom, inside, and the adults were on top. And, my age, we were on top, and we were told to be very quiet because the Russian snipers were already on the riverbank. And we could hear gunfire, machine gun. So the boat very quietly went, the current took the boat down and through the delta and into the Pregel and over the river system into this other half and to Frauenburg, where we were unloaded. And then we were put, different farmers were there, and we were put into farmers.
Do you have a map here?
Yes, okay. See, so we came down here, and then here, and then there's a little river that comes down here, and then we came here, and went down here, and here's Frauenburg.
Wow.
So that's
I have a map here which I will insert into the file and I'll highlight.
yeah.
So how long did it take to get from here?
Well, we drifted on a current. I don't know, but I think we left here in the evening, okay? And we came down here at night, and then I think down here.
This is a lake here, lagoon.
Yeah, it's called, the Kurische.
By then, the Soviets
were already down. Oh,
right
here.
here.
Oh, yeah.
Along the river
They were close to here. Yeah, yeah.
They weren't here yet, right? So
No,
if you reached
no.
here, you were sort of set.
Yes.
Okay.
So we came down, then we came down here,
Right here
and then the
through train,
Pregel.
or-
No, there's a very small river that we came down here, and then Königsberg here, and then into this, you call it a lagoon. Okay, so we went here, into Frauenburg, and this is where we were.
Okay.
Yeah.
This way, and then you went.
We went right
You
in
went to
here,
the lagoon,
here,
okay.
yeah. We went right, yeah, there, down here.
And then in
Yeah.
Brownsburg,
Brownsberg we passed, we came to Frauenburg.
and what?
Brownsberg, I tell you something later about.
What did you? What conditions did you find there? Like, what were you? Where did they place you there?
They had farmers.
Uh-huh.
You see, you're talking with an American mentality,
Right.
conditions and all. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, well, you don't know, you know. No, they had farmers here that some people stayed on the boats and some people we were taken by farmers. And there again, if you stayed on the boat, they were going to take you by train into Germany. My grandmother said, Hitler propaganda, I'm not leaving. I have my home here, I lived all my life here, I'm not leaving. We're going to stay so that we can get back. We don't have to travel from this bombed out area here. So we stayed. Second mistake. And we stayed here until the Russians came.
So it was just you, your grandma,
And
your
my aunt.
uncle.
My aunt.
Where's your mom at this point?
My mom had been taken
Already?
to Eisleben where they were bombed.
Okay.
Eisleben by Chemnitz.
Okay. Okay, so I just want to get this in
Yeah.
my head. Tilsit, you came
Yeah.
over here. See, this one has the names in German and Russian, so
Yeah.
I get it. I brought both of them. So we have Kolber right here.
Well,
You were
that was later.
okay, you started,
Out from Tilsit,
yes.
and we got to Frauenburg.
Oh, here
right
we are.
here.
I went
Yeah.
too far east. And then,
Yeah.
too far west, I'm sorry. And your mom was over here somewhere?
No. My mother was, I'll show you where she was. My mother was in,
Can you make out the faces with that map?
sure. My mother was, it says here Karl-Marx-Stadt.
Okay.
That was the old one, now it's Chemnitz again. My mother was here in Chemnitz, outside of Chemnitz, and that's where they were bombed. And
And your
and
dad was over here in
my,
Denmark.
at that time, when we left here, my father was still in East Prussia.
Wow.
He was still in the military.
Circle this. Right here was your mom.
Yeah.
And your dad was still in the military over
Yeah,
here.
oh, yeah, yeah. We didn't know where he was. We had no idea. You know, once he was in 44, he was put in uniform. We never knew where he was. We didn't know until after the war.
And then you were...
And we were here, my grandmother, my aunt, and I. Yeah. So the three of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So
then what happened when you were in... How long did you stay there? In Frauenburg.
Frauenburg. We
Frauenburg.
got there, yeah, we got there in September, and we stayed on this farm until December 26th, 1944, the Russians came.
Okay, so all that between September, December, you knew the Russians were slowly coming this way.
Mhm.
And once they came this way, they declared that Russian or just occupied?
No, they
They just came
didn't
on
declare,
attack?
yeah.
Because
Yeah, it was
the opposite.
fighting, yeah, it was fighting.
So,
But then we knew that they were committing atrocities.
how did you know? Where did you get those?
I don't know. It
You
just
just
people
knew?
talked, yeah. I don't know if we got it through radio, or I don't know. And you know, soldiers would go around and I don't know.
And
But we
what-
knew they were.
And what do you remember why they said they were doing it?
Why they were committing atrocities. Because they wanted to.
Yeah.
They were fired up by vodka. And my dear, you have no idea. You have absolutely no idea what it is when you're in this combat thing. I remember, and I'm going to be very good now because I'm not going to cry.
You can
And
cry.
on December 26th,
Okay.
I walked out because I know, it's our second, in Germany it's second holiday. I walked out in the morning and it was gray, it was cold, snow, we had a lot of snow. And across the sky were lightning flashes and thunder. And it was close by. And I knew what it was. I knew it. And I prayed that it be a freak lightning storm in the winter. And I wished that was, and I prayed, please, dear God, let it be a storm, a thunderstorm in the middle of winter, which really doesn't happen, But I wanted it so bad to be a thunderstorm, but it wasn't. They were very close.
what did your family do, your grandma? What did you guys decide to do?
We sat in that farmer's kitchen and waited. And we waited, and they came. They just came.
They came to your house, the house where you live? So you saw them face to face? Do you want to talk about it?
Just about one thing. It's in it. And the rest I have to tell you some other time. I can't take it to right now. Anyway, I was shoved in a corner. By a Russian soldier, and he pulled a chair up in this kitchen in front of me. And I was real squeezed, real tight. And he sat down, and, they didn't wear socks. They wore, like, pieces of cloth around their feet. And he unwrapped and unwrapped his feet. And the other soldiers would come in and say something, and yell and laugh, and vodka soaked. And he just sat there and wrapped and unwrapped his feet. So, and there was a small area I could look out onto over the Hof, and then there was a stall in the back, and there was a room where they had 5 Russian POWs, this farm I had working there. And the guard who was guarding them had fled, was an old man. I don't know, he got killed somewhere. And the Russians were yelling from inside, and they hacked down that padlock, and they came out. And these Russian POWs stood there, and they were talking, and the Russian soldiers gave them cigarettes. And then up came from somewhere this little commissar. And he said something, and the POWs started to turn around and run, and he shot all 5 of them, their own prisoners of war. And later on, I went up, and I was thinking, the snow is pink when it's turned, when the blood is in there. Isn't that strange? It was strange to look at that pink snow. Anyway, and you know who freed us? White Russians that were, I don't know if people knew that there were white Russian regiments.
Well, there was the Red Army. Was that the one that was coming in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was the Red Army. So there was a White Army.
Yes, they were fighting with the Germans. They were from White Russia. They were Ukrainians. They were Estonians, but the ones that came in that freed us were this, I guess they were White Russian, and...
How long were you captive?
Not long, hours. And then these White Russians came, and they fought. I don't know what happened, but the Russians went out, and then the White Russians threw us on wagons and told us to go.
How many of you were in the house? It was your.
Well, the three of us, then the farmer's wife, their two children, his sister, and his mother, 9.
Did the Red Army do anything to them?
Mm. Yes.
And you saw them? To the woman?
Yeah.
And what did they do to the husband?
I don't know. I don't know. He was gone. I don't know. And
To your grandma, did they do anything? They did? And to you?
I was in that corner. I was pushed in that corner. I was the only one. And one act of kindness. One act of kindness, right? And then there was a woman that lived sort of. They had been workers on this farm, and they had 5 children, and the woman's father-in-law, he was an old man, and the girl was 1 year older than I was, and they lit that house. I don't know. The woman at that, I was 13, and that girl was 14, and she and her mother were lying in the snow. They were raped multiple times, and they set the house on fire, and I don't know.
When they set the house on fire, where were you outside? You said?
No, we found that out after the White Russians came, after those troops drove them out. Because those that came in didn't have tank support or anything, you know, they were just.
How old was your grandma then? Do you know?
Well, she was born in 78, so that 88, 90, 88, 98, 8, 18, 28, 38, 60. She was in her 60s. Uh-huh. Children.
How did your grandma, like, when you guys were rescued, how was she doing? Did she still support you psychologically?
There is no such thing.
No.
There was no counseling or, you know, this happened to thousands and hundreds of thousands of women. Hundreds of thousands of women. There was no counseling. There was no.
How was she doing?
I don't know. I don't know. You don't. We never talked about it. Mm-hmm. No. It was. We never, ever, ever talked about it. Never. My aunt never, ever talked about it. We just didn't talk about it. Ever. And so, then we left there. And I had other aunts who were raped in other places. We never spoke about it. They would tell. I know one of my aunts was raped on the Elbe River, and I heard her talk, tell it to my other aunt and my grandmother, she told, you know, my father's brother's wife. But she never said it to her daughter or her granddaughter. She was very close to her granddaughter, and neither one of them knew. My cousin knew a little bit. She said one time, she said, was my mother raped? And I said, yes. And she said, she never told me, she never said it. I said, I know. But I heard her tell it to my aunt, her sister-in-law, you know. But, and then my aunt, the one with a Mormon husband, she was raped in Poland. And I know she told my mother, but it was never, you know, it was just, you just said it, but it wasn't anything. It was just happened to hundreds of thousands. And the ones that got out alive were lucky. you know. You just said, oh God, was I lucky. Mm-hmm.
So, the White Russians put you on a train. Where did you go?
No, 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 no. Oh heavens, no.
No?
There were no trains going
Where
there.
did you, was you on a boat?
No. The farmer had a wagon.
Wagon. On a wagon.
And we got on the wagon with the horses. And we went now trying to find, to get away and trying to find. So we went from Frauenburg to Braunsberg.
So you went back east.
Yeah, we went up here because we thought we knew there was an escape through here.
Okay.
So we went to Braunsberg, and Braunsberg was already was filled, and the Russians had been there, had killed everybody. We came to this one village, and they were all dead on the little pond. And anyway, so then from here, we couldn't get there, so we went back to Frauenburg.
Okay.
And but this was, in days, kind of, where are we going, who's going, because there was no guidance, you just had to go by your instinct. So we were then in Frauenburg. This was in January. We were in Frauenburg until I think it was February 9th or 10th when the Russians caught up with us again. And they came into Frauenburg. And it was, there were soldiers here, German soldiers. They had come to this point, and I guess there were White Russians as well. And my grandmother, the house that we were in Frauenburg, was the home of a friend of my aunt's, and she had already left. And so we just went in there and made ourselves comfortable, and there were a lot of food stuff, and my grandmother was making food for these German soldiers and, feeding them and so on with whatever was there in the cellar and in the attic. And so we were there until February, I think it's February 9th when the Russians came in. It was during the night it was very, very quiet, and we knew they were bringing up their cannons up there because, if it was quiet, they were moving and not shooting or anything. So now we're here, and then in the morning about 4 o'clock they started what they call Trommelfeuer, lots of shooting into the city with grenades. So these German soldiers they said, we're getting out. My grandmother sat on the wagon, my aunt and I had to run alongside. So we ran, and then because they were trying with the wagon to get out, and then they waited a little bit, and so we threw ourselves on the wagon, and then we went up here, and there's a place, I think it's called Rosenort, that goes across this lagoon, and the lagoon was frozen, which was our savior. And we went across this lagoon onto this strip of what's called a Nährung. And we had to go with thousands and thousands and thousands of wagons. And planes would come and shoot. However, on that day, the German military threw some fog grenades over. So where the people were going, it was fogged in. And that saved us. We were just so lucky. And we came across, and then the ice was getting thin, and the wagon in front of us broke in and went down, and people were yelling, and they drowned, including the horses. And so anyway, then we had to go around. Those are all little vignettes. And then we got to this place here, and we stayed, I think, maybe 2 days on that strip. And the soldiers dropped us off here. They had wherever they went. None of them really had any chance of escaping. They all got killed eventually. But we were there And then I think was the second night, the German Navy came, and they really did a heroic deed of getting people out. And they called they came with a boat here and called, and then we all went into these boats, that took us to the ship that was anchored.
Okay.
And then we had to climb up on the ladder in the dark onto the ship.
It was cold too.
Oh, January. No, February, sure. And then we got onto a ship, and the ship took us to Gdansk.
Okay.
And it's not really that far, because we left here in the dark at night, and we got into was it the same day? I don't know. I think it must have been the same day, the morning. And I remember we were very thirsty. We didn't have any food, and there was no water on the ship. And the ship had been built for sea cadets, and I think there were like 2,000 people. And no drinking water. It was very difficult. And no toilets. And we were down in the bottom, and I couldn't take it. So I went up, and I stood on the railing of the ship, and there were so many bodies and debris in the water, because ships had been torpedoed before. So we got into Gdansk. And in Gdansk, they herded us off the ship, and they were herding us onto another ship that was there, that was supposed to take us across the ocean and wherever. And we had heard that the Wilhelm Gustloff had been sunk on January 30th, and with, how many thousand people. Did you read about that?
Not the Wilhelm,
Yeah.
but I want to read about it.
Yeah,
You tell me about it.
it's Wilhelm Gustloff, and you look at it.
Mhm.
And
How do you spell the last one?
Gustloff.
Okay.
And so we had heard about it, and they tried to herd us on the ship, and people were going on this ship there, and my aunt said, no, I'm not going on a ship. And she said, we'll get out of here some other way. So we didn't go there. We went down here, and I guess, I don't know, somehow we got into the harbor of Gdansk, into the railroad station. And then they were trying to put us into a movie theater, and the movie theater was full of women and children, babies, and smelled of dirty diapers. And my aunt said, we can't do this. I'd rather die in the street than in here. So we went to the railroad station, and we were trying to get a train out. And you needed a piece of paper that said you could use the train. And everything, German precision. Papiere. Anyway, so we sat for a few days in this railroad station, and we were very fortunate because we were able to get a spot on a table and a chair. So that was a table and a chair. That was very good. Then we got put on a cattle train, and they took us into Poland because it was confusion, pure confusion.
Well, Gdansk was that Poland. It was at that time.
It was at that time was still German.
Okay.
See, this is still 45.
Okay.
It had been Poland and was German.
Poland, and during
Yes,
the war it was
yes,
German. Okay.
yeah.
Yes, okay.
So this was still German, and so they put us into this cattle train, and they took us into Poland. And there were farmers, and this farmer picked us up and took us to his farm. And then my aunt talked to him, and he said, I don't know what you are supposed to do here. He said, we have we don't have food for you, we don't have a room for you, we don't know what you're supposed to do. And my aunt said, I want to go back to Gdansk. I'd rather get out of Danzig than here, you know. So that was very nice of him. His farm boy there was going the next day to Danzig, and he took us back to Danzig. And we got back.